Hi there, I'm Gloria Makarenko. You know, sometimes amazing discoveries can happen when you try something new. Let's find out how. This is Our Vancouver. Coming up, how climate change is messing with the motion of the ocean. And performing artists from around the world share their experimental works at the PuSh Festival. But first, healing by making something beautiful out of something deadly. First responders, police officers, military veterans, they all need ways to deal with the stress and trauma that they may face every day. And our next guest has been in law enforcement for 27 years, and she's been incorporating actual bullets and bullet casings into fine jewelry. That's right. Paulena Gidda is the owner of Bullets and Beads, and it's based in Surrey, and she's here now to show us some of her work. Paulena, hi, welcome.
Hi, Gloria, how are you?
I'm doing well. Wow, what a concept. So how did this all begin?
It started as a therapeutic necessity for me. I hit rock bottom with my PTSD probably almost 7 years ago, and this is what came out of it.
And why bullet casings?
Being a police officer for 27 years, having a husband who is ex-military turned law enforcement, I have a long lineage of police, fire, military, just first responders in family. This is really all I know.
I see. So how has this helped you with your own PTSD?
This really, I guess I can honestly say, saved my life. It was something that gave me purpose to focus. You know what, when you're at your darkest, you can have support systems, but having that one thing that you can focus on and just clear your head with, this was it. This was it for me.
Right. Well, can you just give us a little bit of window into that world and what kinds of pressures people who are on the front lines are under?
It doesn't matter, you know, whether you're ambulance, fire, police, military, you can't unsee what you've seen. And sometimes closing your eyes at night is the worst thing for you. So you're up all hours of the night, you're not sleeping, you're not taking care of your mental health, you're really not eating, and that exercise component isn't there. So you're looking for everything and anything that you can do to clear your head, stay alive, and just be able to get through the day. And for me, this was getting through the nights, because the nights were the worst for me.
No, it's an amazing story. Mm-hmm. It really is. So how did all of this jewelry making come about? I mean, was this something you were already interested in, or how did you hone your skills?
I had never made jewelry at all. It was something that, because I was fiddling and the bullet casings were readily available, I just started stringing. And the bracelets were actually the first thing that I had made. And as I kind of developed and had these crazy ideas in my head as to what it is that I wanted to wear, but had no idea how to put them together, it really was YouTube, and then it was other veterans. And the older veterans were wonderful to deal with, because when you're at the Elks and you're at, you know, the Legion, talking to these older veterans, they're a wealth of information, and really they got all the time in the world because they're retired. So talking to them and looking at them and saying, hey, like, this brass needs to go to this piece, but I don't know how to fix it.
Right. They've got it.
They've got it covered.
Where do you get your materials from?
They are all previously fired, and they're fired by police, military, veterans, and that's where they come from.
Now, I don't want to tip anything over, but let's start over there. You've got cufflinks?
Absolutely, yeah, we've got cufflinks. So they are all previously fired. You'll get the rims. The casings come to us, if you're not familiar, in that form.
Okay.
So what we'll do is grind down the back end, which is the rim, where you see the trademark, so where it says Winchester, Federal, whoever has made the casing.
Yes.
And we embed them with Swarovski crystals, or we leave them blank, and then we got the larger ones, which are the shotguns.
That is just something else. Okay, so we've got the cufflinks. You've got some gorgeous rings here as well.
We do.
Okay, let's do a close-up on the ring. That's beautiful. Look at that filigree. It's just gorgeous. So again, story?
You know what? It was one of those things where we started getting asked for, other products, and rings were one of those things. But it was one of those things where hassling with a size 6 and a 7 and an 8 and a 9 was, it was just so time consuming sometimes. So the filigree was perfect because it is adjustable.
Yes,
but
ideal.
But it stays true to having that rim.
Okay, now what about this one? This one's quite intriguing for me, this pointy one right in front here.
The pointy one there is because we deal with as much of the product as we can and what we have. We have a full 7mm copper bullet, hand-cut filigree wrapped around it, and then strung onto a 7mm chain. This is actually my very first necklace, and it's called Angel Tears, and partial proceeds of that go to fallen members.
Okay, let's talk about that. Proceeds going to help people like this. We're in the same situation that you were in when you started this all off.
Absolutely. When I first started, because I was at my lowest and I was dealing with my PTSD and trying to climb out of it, partial proceeds of all of my sales, I donate back to other organizations that help other veterans, first responders, military, whomever that are dealing.
What kind of reaction do you get?
You know what? Our reaction's been fantastic. Yeah, I was a little uncertain when we first started, but we've been open arms by the community.
Open Arms for Bullets and Beads by Paulena. Thank you so much, and congratulations. You've created some really beautiful pieces here.
Thank you.
This is our Vancouver.
Now, from striking skies to icy weather, there has been a lot of beauty in BC for photographers to capture. So let's take a moment for one of our favorite features. This is where we get to highlight a few of the images that are sent in by you. We'll start with this one. PK Giesbrecht caught the bright sun and these interesting textures in the sand along the Fraser River. Just lovely. Now, the sky was almost all blue over Ashcroft during the January wolf moon, and Casey Mehenik was there to share it with us. Thank you so much. Just lovely. And finally, look at this. These ice crystals look just gorgeous. So thanks so much to Connie Bigfoot's camera in northern BC. Just brilliant. Thanks for sending it in. And do send us more. It's easy. Just get your favorite shots and email them to us. bcphotos@cbc.ca. That's it, bcphotos@cbc.ca. Now, Johanna Wagstaff is back with more Planet Wonder on CBC Explore. So this is a program about climate science and the impacts of climate change. So here is an excerpt from episode 2 where Johanna asks, how is climate change messing with the motion of the ocean?
Okay, did you remember your passport? Did you turn off all the lights? Do you have your book? Is your phone charged? Turns out it takes a single drop of water about 1,000 years to travel around the world. We also know global warming is changing everything. So that got me wondering, how is climate change messing with the motion of the ocean? Oceans are all about movement, and it starts with sucking in CO2. And there is a lot of extra CO2 in our atmosphere right now, higher levels than at any time in the past 400,000 years because of burning fossil fuels. Now, a bunch of it, as we know, just hangs out in our atmosphere for a long, long time, heating our planet up by creating a giant greenhouse. Some of it is taken up by plants through photosynthesis. Thank you, trees. But a huge amount ends up in our oceans. Oceans absorb 30 to 50% of the CO2 produced by burning fossil fuels. Without our oceans, global warming would have already made the planet a lot warmer. How exactly does the ocean consume carbon? First, through basic chemistry. It's just carbon dioxide dissolves in water. H2O plus CO2 equals H2CO3. This is carbonic acid, which literally just breaks apart and reforms as bicarbonate, which is stored in shells and bones of marine organisms. The other way the ocean eats CO2 is through photosynthesis by phytoplankton, which are microscopic plant-like organisms. They generate about half the oxygen in the atmosphere, as much per year as all plants on land. But of course, there is a limit to how much CO2 the ocean can take in. To understand how the ocean is already changing, I connected with Simon Donner, an ocean scientist and climate change communicator who often commutes to work in his kayak. First, he's going to explain the three main ways water moves in our oceans: surface currents, vertical mixing, and the global conveyor belt. Simon, thank you for joining me on a beautiful winter kayak day. It's pretty great, right?
It is great. It's a little nippy, but it's great.
Yes. What are all the different ways that the ocean moves?
Well, there's really two main ways that the ocean circulates. The first is what you would feel if you're out like in a sailboat, which is the movement of the water on the surface, and that's just being driven by the winds and by the fact that the planet's rotating.
Right.
And so it's like the ocean's a fluid on top of a rotating surface.
Wait, I want to know more. Let's go down the rabbit hole. Did you know that an ocean accident inspired scientists and storytellers to learn more about how ocean currents work? So this is a video excerpt from a book by Christiane Dorian called How the World Works. In 1992, a ship carrying cargo from Hong Kong to Seattle ran into stormy weather, an Aleutian low likely in January. 28,000 rubber ducks were lost overboard. And oceanographers jumped on the chance to understand more about how surface ocean currents work. So they asked beachcombers all around the world to stay tuned for those rubber ducks. Later that year, those ocean currents carried the first rubber duck to the shores of Alaska. There it is, first rubber duck. Hi. And since then, hundreds of ducks have followed those ocean currents all over the world. A lot of them are still ending up on shores. And we're still learning a lot about how ocean currents work. So if you find a rubber duck, it might just be part of the great accident / great experiment.
There's another way that the ocean moves that is really surprising, and it's driven all by like the density of water. So you've got water that's some water that's warmer and that floats a little bit more. You've got water that's got more salt in it and that's denser. And because of that, there's some parts of the ocean where the new deep water gets created and sinks, and that sinking motion causes this slow overturning of the ocean that takes like thousands of years.
In a minute, we'll connect ocean motion and climate change. But first, we wanted to ask what you know about all the ways the ocean moves.
What I understand, I think it's guided by somehow the moon.
So I was thinking, I know the moon has
Yeah.
a big part to do with it.
That's good.
Thank you.
Gravity, yeah.
Thank you.
I think the ocean moves with currents.
Any guesses on the different ways that the ocean moves?
Yeah.
This is actually a jar of the layers of the ocean. So it actually mixes up and down, so it moves up and down as well. Did you know that?
Nope, I didn't.
Can you kind of show us how you think it might mix? Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, that's good. That's good. The tumbler motion and then the big conveyor belt. Yeah. That's good. That's good. That's good. And then yeah, that's good. Yes.
I think it would mix vertically. Rather, you take two liquids, one's denser than the other. I'm pretty sure the more denser liquid would sink to the bottom. The less dense liquid would sink on top, would go on top. Basically, it'll go like, let's say you poured it in, it would go.
Well, you nailed it. How is this body of water connected to all the oceans around the world?
I mean, the oceans obviously are all connected, but there's this grand movement of water that takes thousands of years, and it's because of these differences in density. And people call it the Great Ocean Conveyor Belt. Scientists call it the thermohaline circulation. And what it is that there are some parts of the ocean, particularly in the North Atlantic, where the water is denser at the surface. It's cold and it's salty, and so water sinks in that part of the ocean.
Coming up, Johanna will be back with a lesson on the most significant weather forecast in history, June 6, 1944, D-Day.
In the spring of 1944, as the Allies prepared for the invasion of Europe, a key component of the decision-making process was the weather, and more importantly, the accuracy of the forecasting of the weather. The invasion was to involve airborne troops landing by parachute or glider at night, bomber aircraft needing visual views of the ground for pinpoint bombing of key targets, and ships to transport troops across the sea and land them on beaches, and the timing of tides to address the beach defenses. All of these components were dependent on the weather and the go, no-go decision of the weather forecasts. Weather data collection was in its infancy. No satellites, no ocean buoys, no specialized aircraft, and no computers, as we know them today anyway. They had some ship observations and some land-based observers and historical charts. What they did have was disagreement. The generals were supported by two different camps of meteorologists. On the one hand, they believed that the key was analog methods of using historical patterns and weather cycles to supplement current station reporting. They believed a repeat pattern was forming and that the invasion should go ahead. On the other hand, the group was led by Pedersen, and they believed a delay was required, but that a small window of weather would open up the following day, June 6th. The generals ultimately listened to Pedersen, and the invasion was delayed until June 6, 1944, when a small high-pressure system opened up after the storm, and the rest was history. This event is now known as the most significant weather forecast in history. Years later, during a ride to the Capitol for his inauguration, President-elect John F. Kennedy asked President Eisenhower why the Normandy invasion had succeeded. Eisenhower's fitting response: because we had better meteorologists than the Germans.
Now, the PuSh International Performing Arts Festival continues to push innovation and experimentation in its show. And so we have two guests with us today to give us a little bit of a preview. Tom Arthur Davis is the PuSh Festival's interim director of programming. Tom, hello there.
Hello.
And Faye Nass is artistic director of the Aphotic Theatre. Faye, hi, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So let's give us a little bit of an overview here. What sets PuSh apart from any other festival?
Yeah, I mean, we're an international festival, so we're bringing in stuff from all over the world. We have 13 countries represented in the works that we're presenting this year. There's 20 works. And, you know, these are all works that are like taking risks and, you know, bending form in really exciting ways. So, yeah, you're going to see some really cool experimental and really entertaining works at PuSh.
Okay, experimental, so we're talking theater, we're talking
Yeah,
other
we
kinds
do
of
the
performing
whole
arts?
gamut. So we do theater, we do music, we do multimedia, we do circus, we do dance. So yeah, there's really a whole bunch of stuff on display. And then also all the stuff in between, right? Because there's multidisciplinary works that it's so hard to categorize just as dance or just as theater.
But you must be inundated with people who want to be part of PuSh. How do you decide what goes in the festival this year?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're a curated festival, and I'm filling in for Gabrielle Martin. She's the regular director of programming at PuSh, and she's curated this festival, and she's done an amazing job. So she goes out and she sees works. Like she wants to be all over the world. So, you know, I was recently in Cairo. I've been to Edinburgh. She's been to Chile. She's been all over, like all over Europe and Belgium. And it's, you know, it allows us to kind of see perspectives from all over the place and go, okay, what's really exciting? What's really going to excite Vancouver audiences and bring it here?
Okay, now Faye, I'd love to hear more about one of your contributions to the festival this year, and this is the cafe.
Yes, so the cafe project actually was part of PuSh's programming last year, and then because of Omicron, it was kind of like, you know, canceled, and we're super lucky and excited that once again we're back. So it was a sold-out show that we premiered in partnership with PuSh as development, and in October, and we're back for 3 nights during the PuSh Festival. So it's a site-specific piece, choose your own adventure, co-produced by Aphotic Theatre, and it's a zoo theater. I wrote the concept a few years ago, like looking at this idea of art and life and the line that kind of like blurs between these two realities. And so there's 7 plays that are happening in a coffee shop. We commissioned 9 playwrights, 7 plays that 2 of them are co-written. And they basically look at, dialogues that happen naturally in a coffee shop, looking at ideas of cultural differences, linguistic, sex, gender, sexuality. And I was always interested in this notion that we go to these public spaces and we have these rules that we should not eavesdrop. And what if we can give permission for audiences to be voyeurs and be able to actually have permission to listen into these conversations?
I love that, because sometimes I'm at a coffee shop with a friend and I say, shh, shh. Just do that little bit of a head wave behind. So you give us permission to do that. I like that. Yes. Now, what other kinds of collaborations can you highlight from this year's festival, Tom?
Yeah, sure. So we have lots of partners around the city. Partnerships is kind of what makes PuSh possible. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to afford to bring all these amazing shows to life. One of them is actually with Faye's other company, the Frank Theatre Company. We're doing 2 collaborations with you folks. One is on a show called Soliloquio, which is from an Argentinian indigenous artist named Tiziano Cruz. And it's a really bold, politically charged piece about being indigenous in Buenos Aires and, what does it mean to make art as an indigenous artist when the state doesn't really want you to exist in the first place. But it's also filled with so much like love and compassion. So it's actually just like a beautiful, like kind of like a warm hug, but also like really addressing some really big issues, which obviously will resonate with lots of audiences here. We have a lot of the same issues. And then we also have a thing called Club PuSh, which is like really a more relaxed vibe that people can go and kind of get a beer or, non-alcoholic beverage, whatever your choice is, and see some like more cabaret-style performances. And we have 3 of those nights, and one of them is being curated by the Frank Theatre.
Oh, do tell us more.
Sure, yes. We're very excited to work on both these pieces, like, co-presenting the piece that really means a lot to the Frank. The Frank is a LGBTQ2+ mandated theatre company in Vancouver with a lot of focus on BIPOC artists and those that they have been standing on the margins of within queer community. So for the cabaret, we are really much focusing on drag performances, burlesque shows, music, and highlighting beautiful talent in the city of queer BIPOC artists that we have. And really excited to be back at the PuSh for the 2nd year. So do not miss it. It's going to be a really fun, wild night.
It sounds like
Yes.
it. It sounds like it. Faye, Tom, thank you. Thanks for being here, and thanks for pushing the limits, I guess, on art and creativity in the city as well. Have a great festival.
Thank you so much, Gloria. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
It's only the end of an endless time. I wake up in my home bed.
If you'd like to go and see some live music, the Toronto folk group The Weather Station plays the Chan Centre for the Performing Arts with a 10-piece orchestral ensemble featuring members of UBC Contemporary Players. That happens Saturday, January 21st.
Many years have passed, but you're still charming. Rose falling and exploding. You can't save the world on your own, I guess. Don't send me it. You keep it.
And South London alt rockers Dry Cleaning. They're playing the Rickshaw Theatre Tuesday, January 17th.
Hey, I'm Grant Lawrence from CBC Music. Happy New Year. Hope this finds you healthy and happy, because it was a bit of a sad holiday season for some, especially when it came to losing beloved members of the Canadian music industry, including legendary critic, columnist, musician, author, TV and radio host, Tom Harrison.
Harrison recently died over the holidays, leaving behind a legacy as an industry legend who helped shape Canada's music landscape.
He knew more about music than the next 10 people put together.
His career as a music critic began at the Georgia Strait. He then joined the Province newspaper, where he stayed for 37 years. Industry experts say Harrison's finger was always on the pulse.
Tom had this ability to cut to the quick and just sense what was important and also timely, or what was going to be timely.
A critic who could be found at every live performance, unswayed by the corporate music machine.
He always found time to sort of tip a hat to a smaller artist, and those smaller artists I mean, we're talking Bryan Adams, Sarah McLachlan, Skinny Puppy. He was writing about them quite a bit before everybody else.
Thanks very much to the CBC's Joel Ballard for that. Tom Harrison, considered the dean of Western Canadian music critics, died of a stroke on Christmas Day. He was 70 years old. Fans of the beloved and long-running Calgary pop-punk band Chicks Dig It found themselves in mourning this holiday season when it was announced that their former drummer and producer Dave Alcock had died. Going back to the late 1990s, that's Calgary band Chicks Dig It with their song Chupacabras, and that was drummer young Dave Alcock in the checkered blazer. Dave also ran Sunday Sound, a famed Calgary recording studio for many years, and for a while there, if a band recorded in Calgary in the 90s or 2000s, there's a very good chance that the name Dave Alcock is in the credits, either as the engineer, producer, or drummer. Dave Alcock died in his hometown of Calgary over the holidays. He was 47, and as Chicks Dig It posted, Dave will be remembered as caring, thoughtful, and funny, just the loveliest guy. A major Canadian music titan with very strong ties to Alberta also passed away, a man considered to be one of the greatest songwriters ever to set pen to paper and fingers to guitar.
For strong winds that blow along seven seas that run high, all those things that don't change, come what may. But our good times are all gone, I'm bound and moving on. I'll look for you if I'm never back this way.
Yes, you're likely aware that the iconic Canadian songwriter Ian Tyson died over the holidays on December 29th at 89 years old. The all-time troubadour was raised in Duncan on Vancouver Island, came of age in the folk cafes of Toronto and New York, and died in Longview, Alberta. His classic song, Four Strong Winds, was written in 20 minutes. In an apartment in New York City after an inspirational meeting with Bob Dylan in the early 60s. And that song was voted by listeners as the best Canadian song of all time on CBC Radio, but it's just one of Tyson's many great tunes that he has left us with. So cheers to the memory and legacy of all those who have left us as we move forward into 2023. And thanks to Ryan McKee for the t-shirt. I'm Grant Lawrence. Take care of yourself, and I'll check in with you again soon.
Coming up, how skiing is being paired with storytelling in Kimberley, BC.
Oh, beautiful.
Hi, you're watching Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Makarenko. Now, a collaborative skiing and storytelling project in Kimberley is aiming to get kids moving and reading. As the CBC's Corey Bullock reports, the new ski story program at the Nordic Club, it's encouraging literacy and activity through the story of the Gruffalo.
Every day, Kootenay kids head outside to play. It's a common occurrence to see families on the slopes on the weekend, but a new program at the Kimberley Nordic Club combines skiing with a story.
Terrible teeth in his terrible jaws.
The Nordic Club and Kimberley Public Library have come together to present an interactive storytelling of the popular children's book, The Gruffalo. And what do you think about combining a ski with a story?
I love it.
The two organizations hope to encourage a combination of physical activity and literacy within their youngest user groups.
Being physical in the world allows us to engage in all that all the senses provide, and we then are curious about what the world is and what's going on out there. So I think the combination of physical activity allows sort of that curiosity to then reinforce reading.
The Gruffalo is told across 12 boards stationed along a popular 2-kilometer cross-country ski trail.
You know, the mandate of the library is to promote our services and promote literacy in fun and engaging ways. And often that comes outside of the traditional walls of the library. And
It's a unique project they hope will have a lasting impact.
kids won't necessarily know that they're learning and reading, and they're just out to have a good time.
It's also seen as a way to get children out and engaging in the community.
Pandemic was really difficult and very isolating for lots of people, including families. So this was a priority for us to open up library services again and let people know that there's different ways of using the library.
And what better way to get kids outside to play than with a ski and a story? Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
Hello, my name is Nogo. This is our Vancouver.
Now, if you live far from your elderly parents and maybe you think they need help with errands or maybe just some company, Tuk2 may help. So what's Tuk2? It's a new app that connects seniors and caregivers. And I had a chance to speak with Kamal Makad, co-founder of the app, and Hannah T. Porton, their customer experience manager, on our afternoon radio show On the Coast. Okay, so Kamal, what inspired you to create this app? What's the need?
The need is humongous. It all started with our personal struggles, the founder and the co-founders. We sat down and we are first-generation immigrants and our families live away, and we constantly felt the need, or there was a hesitation for reaching out to our loved ones, our family caregivers, and we saw it really difficult to support them from afar. When we looked around, we started volunteering at churches and we started volunteering at care homes and saw that the family caregivers could not support, if they're living far away, their loved ones, and the need was humongous. In addition to that, there was also no transparency of information provided to the family caregivers, despite of $500 billion that was spent 2 years back in family maintenance across the globe. Luckily, or fortunately or unfortunately, when we were working on it, COVID hit, and the whole thing just exacerbated to another limit. We all were hit, certainly, with social isolation, but it were the seniors who were hit the most. And that made us also realize that people need to come together to support elderly.
Tell me about the name. Tuk2?
Tuk2. It's Tuktu. It's an Inuit indigenous name. It means a reindeer or a caribou.
So why the reindeer or the caribou?
The reindeer or a caribou because it signifies a bearer of good news. And that's what we wanted our brand to be. That's what we wanted our Tuk2 help us to be, to reach out to the seniors, to reach out to vulnerable adults and be a bearer of good news.
I see. I didn't know that was a symbol as well with these animals. All right, Hannah, how does the app work?
Yeah, so basically, if you were either a senior living on your own and needed help, or you could be a child of a aging parent, you'd be able to go onto the app, create a profile. You can create a family tree, have your mom and your dad live in separate places. You can create profiles for both of them, and kind of explore the different services we offer, whether it be a travel companion, someone to help them with rides, to and from appointments, or housekeeping, or just a general companion. You'd be able to find the time and date best for them and chat with the Tuk2 that you find as well prior to the service. Or as, you know, many of our seniors who are living on their own, they might not be as tech savvy. They can always give us a call.
I see. Imagine that happening. I don't know. But Hannah, how are people paid? I mean, who sets the prices?
Yeah, so we do cap all of all of the services. So we give our tuktus, our service providers, are arranged for them to choose from. They join, they pick and choose which services they want to provide. So it could be someone who works in IT, and they might just only want to provide tech help services. So they'll set their account up to do that and set what price they feel is fair for the area, while staying by the cap that we set to kind of remain non-exploitative.
I see. And Kamal, where do you draw your workers from? What's that pool?
The fun thing is that tuktus are from all walks of life. We have professors from UBC, SFU signed up as tuktus. We have students from the same universities.
Okay, what would an SFU professor do?
Oh, we have a music professor from UBC who has signed up as a tuktu, and he goes and does companionship and also plays piano at times for the senior, and that's very cute.
I see that. Well, tell me more. Different services.
As I said, tuktus come from all walks of life. Some of them are homemakers, they're entrepreneurs themselves, they're running small businesses, they're students, they are employed at, say, tech companies or other companies. So the idea was that whatever you're doing in your daily life, all of us have a few hours which we can put in to do something meaningful. And tuktu is supporting the workers to do something meaningful in their free time and also earn a little bit extra on the side.
I see. So, but is it always a side hustle, or could this be a full-time job for someone?
It depends on when their availability and what areas they're serving. So far, on an average, our tuktu works between 5 to 8 hours a week. That's an average time duration that we have seen, which equals to 3 services or 4 services a week. And that's a sweet spot for tuktus that we figured out.
I see. So, Kamal, how do you ensure safety and security on this platform overall? I mean, when I talk about that would be both for the seniors and for the caregivers or tuktus.
Right. That's a brilliant question. Thank you for bringing that up. Safety and security has been our number one goal. Right from the point where the tuktus sign up, they are to submit their references, they are to submit their resumes, their social links, which we can quickly plow through. After we've reviewed the information, they have to go undergo an enhanced criminal background check by the RCMP. Once they do that, they also have personal interviews and a training session where our team assesses that whether they are a right fit or not and gives them all the information. And then at the end, we provide the access to the tuktu provider app, which helps them give the services finally to the seniors. So there's a rigorous process of safety and security before anyone has access to the provider app or before providing services. The second part of safety and security is also insurance, whether they are insured or not. So we've all of the tuktus are recommended insurance up to 1 million of liability insurance. We do connect them with Zen Insurance, where they can, fill up their information and take the insurance, and that is mandatory for certain services like companionship.
Coming up, what's behind the demand for a new group that's organizing alcohol-free social events? Hi, welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Makarenko. Now, for those giving dry January a try, avoiding alcohol for a month, it can be a little challenging for some, especially if you're going it alone. But as Sohrab Sandhu reports, there's a group that's organizing booze-free events for the LGBTQ community.
Walking for Sobriety. That's the theme for this week's event organized by Sober Babes, a sobriety group that organizes events and hangouts for women, non-binary people, and members of the LGBTQ+ community. From movie nights to drag shows, this group helps its members drink less by offering alternative social activities.
I decided that I was going to give up alcohol, and I needed to find like-minded friends in Vancouver who also didn't drink and wanted to get out and just do fun activities that didn't involve alcohol.
Mick Dean and Zelika Brown co-founded the group in May last year. driven by a need to have a safe space for non-binary and LGBTQ+ groups.
I Googled Sober Vancouver because I was trying to find some events or some groups, and I was really shocked that there were no spaces in Vancouver for people like me.
So sober and you're gay, so you're trying to like work around that, so it's easier to go to a space if it has sober and it's representing the LGBTQ community.
Something that Dean says was missing in regular sobriety groups like Alcohol Anonymous.
It was just a lot of like older cis white men, and I just didn't really feel comfortable being myself there. And I'm someone I've been out as queer for 7 years now.
This is their first walk, which is being co-hosted by Vancouver Queer Irish, a registered non-profit dedicated to the cause of local queer community. However, the organizers say the support group is open to everyone.
You just have to live in Vancouver, or be queer, or be Irish. Everyone is welcome.
Sober Babes is planning to make coffee walks a monthly occurrence around various Vancouver neighborhoods. And later this month, they are launching a support group, building their space one step at a time. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Vancouver.
Now, as we enter our 4th year with COVID-19, BC Health Minister Adrian Dix recently reminded us the importance of keeping up to date with vaccinations. Now, back in 1986, amid a severe outbreak of measles, experts said vaccine mandates help. So here's a story from our CBC archives.
Given the unpredictability of children at play, there probably isn't much any parent can do to protect these children from bruises and scrapes. What Canadian doctors can't figure out, however, is why so many of them spent time in bed this year with the measles. In the first 7 months of 1986, 14,000 youngsters across the country came down with measles. More than half those cases came from one province, British Columbia.
There have been 3 children in this province with very serious neurological damage because of measles. Measles can also lead to death, and in a totally preventable disease, this is unacceptable.
Doctors routinely vaccinate children at 1 year of age. Any earlier and it doesn't take. There are only 3 provinces which have made vaccination mandatory: Ontario, New Brunswick, and Manitoba. In the others, most doctors have worked aggressively to promote vaccination, but some parents haven't been convinced it's necessary.
The reality is the vaccine is exceedingly safe. It doesn't really carry probably any long-term adverse consequences whatsoever. The disease, however, does carry long-term adverse consequences.
Mandatory vaccination helps. In the United States, there were fewer cases of measles than in British Columbia alone.
We have school laws which have helped us in achieving those very high immunization levels. Canada, for the most part, doesn't have the same sort of school laws and the high immunization levels.
I don't think you can put people in prison because they don't get their kids vaccinated, but I think you have to apply that law and ensure that the parents are aware of that law and make sure that school authorities ensure that children have vaccination certificates or proof of the disease when they come to school.
2/3 of the cases in Canada were teenagers. Most of these kids were born at a time when doctors knew the disease could be prevented, but before doctors knew which vaccine was best.
But they missed the intensive, increasing campaign of measles vaccination during the 70s and early 80s.
In Vancouver, no one has been able to figure out why here. Vaccination is voluntary in this province, but 97% of children at age 6 have been vaccinated. Right now, these children are safe. Measles is a winter disease. But 10 days from now, they'll be back at school. And school is the prime transmission ground for measles. Only then will the doctors know if the epidemic is over, or if, like the children, measles has just taken a summer vacation. Karen Webb, CBC News, Vancouver.
At the end of this program, we like to tip our hats to our talented photojournalists on staff at CBC Vancouver. They bring us images in their artful ways. They help to give more depth and character to the stories that we cover. So here's a sampling from what they saw this past week. And that's all for Our Vancouver for this week. I hope you can join me weekday afternoons on CBC Radio 1 for On the Coast. For now, bye-bye.